Well, it is a good day to be alive. Welcome, overcomers. I'm Maggie Wynn, your host. Welcome. My spiritual mother and mentor for the last 7 years, 8 years.
Yeah, it's been a while.
So please welcome Miss Shirley.
Thank you. Thank you. Maggie is a spitfire ball, and the thing is when I first met her, I could see this in her. She is so full of the love of God, so full of wanting to serve in whatever capacity, whether it's singing, whether it's doing this, whether it's just reaching out one-on-one with people. And she's such a blessing. She's a great singer. She's a great mother. She's a great friend. And my baby girl.
Aww.
And I love her dearly. And I'm honored to be here with you, Maggie. And I so thank you for
Thank you for
asking
doing
me.
this
You
podcast
bet,
and
you bet.
video blog.
First, I think I want to say that God has a plan. God has a plan for each of us. It depends on whether you choose to reach out and take hold of that plan that He has for you. My background is much like so many people that we hide. I brought a mask today because we hide behind our masks because we don't want to reveal to people what's really deep down and dark that's within us. Maybe we're embarrassed. Maybe we're ashamed. But I'm here to tell you there's now no condemnation to those that are in Christ. And it's only He that can free us from the bondages that we find ourselves in. My bondage was being brought up in a home that I never felt loved in. I was not told by my parents that they loved me until I was in my 20s. Very difficult to understand that. Didn't understand why. In the day and age of when I grew up, which was in the 50s, 60s, you did not say verbally, I love you to your children. You showed it through your actions, whether it's being the breadwinner of the family or being the dutiful wife, if you will, that does the housekeeping and prepares the meals, whatever form that is. That was the day and age I grew up in. But as a child, I never realized that. And I was in elementary school. We used to go walking on the weekends. She'd come to the house and we'd go walking around town and whatnot. Being from a small town, that's what you did on Saturdays. You walked around downtown and you looked and did window shopping. And that was our fun time. And one day, she said, I want to introduce you to someone. So she took me to this house. This man comes to the door, and it's a man in his 30s. I'm roughly 9 years old. Long story short, I kept returning back to this man. He molested me. And at that age, not knowing what adults know, you realize that that's what love is a physical touching, just whatever form that is. And so this went on for a while. I don't remember how long, but it did go on for a while. It was so long that he actually moved from one house to another home. Mm. So there became a lot of baggage as a child growing up. And then there was a time in my life where I totally disregarded it and didn't think about it until things would trigger it. I don't know. Later as I got older, in being in the 60s, the hippie era.
It was something that was not talked about back in those days.
Well, not in the 50s, no. You did not. And you saw, even in the movies, you would see men and women separated in the beds. They'd have their own twin beds or whatnot.
Made you wonder how they had kids, right?
Well, that was the innocence of that age.
Yeah,
I was lacking something. Obviously, I was lacking something, and I know I'm not the only one. And so the issue is, then you're going, well, what's wrong with me?
Mm-hmm. And at what age did you start to realize, what's wrong with me? Because I don't think that we realize something's wrong with us because of what we go through until either someone points it out or it's like a God intervention himself, I think, or some kind of tragedy happens and we keep going in the same thing over and we wonder, why do I keep going through the same cycle?
Mm-hmm. Well, I was probably married actually when that happened, because that mindset, that immaturity stayed with me. I married at the age of 20. My husband 23. He was able to teach me a great deal. He taught me a great deal as far as being an adult, seeing things from an adult standpoint perspective. The facets of life are so many, and we'd go to games. We were living in Europe at the time, and we went to a basketball game because it was warmer on base than it was in our house off base. And so we would go to these sports events. But we were there, and this referee made a bad call, or so I thought. I was rooting for my team. And so, I'm, oh, boo, 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 whatever, the case may be, as someone on the sidelines. And my husband said, no, that was a right call. I said, what do you mean that was a right call? Da, 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 da. He says, no. He said, that was a right call. He said, get out of your shoes. Get into his shoes. See it from a different perspective. And so at that point, I realized that, there's so many different facets that we have to look at. And as an adult and as someone in maturing in age, when you sit and analyze something, when you sit and look at things, then you have to look at all angles. And so and I was in my 20s, not understanding life still, realizing that you have to look within yourself. So I don't really know, except probably when I got married, did I see things do trigger memories. It's what you do with those memories. Do you dwell on those memories? Do you look back? They always talk about looking back in the rearview mirror. Mm-hmm. There's a thing when I would teach that I would bring up about the trapeze artist and how they swing back and forth, and they're in this comfort zone and they're building up speed, but they're not letting go because this is where they're at. Okay? But then they see this other bar come up and they want to reach out. And in order to reach out, they have to let go of one hand. Mm-hmm. Well, if this bar that you're on is your past and you're swinging and you're comfortable in your past, you can't reach out unless you release part of that. And so the release is that you finally reach out. You get the courage. And how you get the courage is through the Lord, because you can't do it within your own strength.
That's true. Amen.
You cannot do that within your own strength. You think you can, but you cannot. Greater is he that's in me than he that's in the world. And so he's the one who's strengthening us with his righteous right hand. And so in order to get rid of that past, you have to reach out to the future. Mm-hmm. And now you got hold of two. But now you're in limbo. I want to say in my past, I want to wear it as my badge. Mm. Look at me.
Why do you think we do that?
Again, it's a lacking of self-esteem, I think. It's a lacking of acknowledgement of who you are. Low self-esteem as a child carries into your adulthood until you see yourself differently.
That is a transformation. That's a huge
it is.
process. Mm-hmm. To transfer what you've been told your entire life versus to what you see yourself as a child of God when you come to know God. Mm-hmm. So to unlearn all of those things with the insecurity that you have, I think takes the Holy Spirit, takes a lot of work, a lot of prayer, a lot of deliverance. And so what are the steps that you took to be able to do that? Because I know we all have different steps that we take.
We do. Well, mine began, I believe, when Sam and Nancy Brassfield came to church. And they were talking about how George Patton taking his convoy into Anzio in Italy, okay, during World War II. All right, they were going to take back the city and give it back over to the Italians, right? And so the convoy suddenly stops. And he gets out of his Jeep, and George Patton gets out of his Jeep, and he's like, why are we stopping? We should be going forward. What do we do? What is wrong? And the lieutenant comes back and he says, sir, he said, we can't move forward anymore. There's a couple of mules that are just set down in the middle of a bridge. And the owner of the mules that has this cart, he can't get them to move. And Patton says, I'll take care of this. And so he walks up there, pulls out his pistol that he always carried, his pearl-handled pistol. I don't remember what. I don't know enough about guns to tell you what kind. But he pulls it out and he goes bang bang. He shoots both of the mules and he says, "Okay, now push them over the side and let's go forward." Mm-hmm. And that began when Nancy and Sam Brassfield were saying this one night at church, and she says. Those who want to kill some mules, come up here. Oh my goodness. It was between me and a friend. We were trying to be the first ones there. And we were just making a beeline for the front. And we get there and she lay hands on me. And next thing I know is I am sobbing. Wow. I am sobbing like a child, face down in the floor. Mm. Face down in the floor, sobbing. And my husband comes and he's like, "Are you okay?" What's up? My husband knew nothing about my past. Yeah. I never shared that.
That's crazy because, how do you hold that in for so long and deal with those things?
There was a shame. There was a shame and a guilt that went with it, mm-hmm. that held me bound. It bound me in those chains for 42 years. And that evening on the way home, because, we lived out of town, from the church, and on the way home I began to tell him portions, not details. I don't go into details a lot because it's too sensitive and people just don't need to know that.
I agree.
But the fact that I was molested and that I kept returning back to receive what I thought was love to the same man over and over and over again. The shame and the guilt that went with that was enormous. Mm-hmm. And would I drink? Yes, I would. Would I fall back into that depressed state? Yes, I would. Would I wear my badge? Absolutely. And it's shameful to say, but it's almost like for those few that knew about it, and there was very few, and I could count them on less than 3 fingers, that knew that. It was like, but look at this, woe is me. And it's like, God has taken me from the pit to the palace. He's taken me out of that pit, and he's done that. If you were to look at a ladder, with the steps on the ladder, rung by rung, through his word, building on his word, to pull me out, because I was satisfied in that pit. Even though there were times that debris would fall in, more stuff would fall in on me, and it would become heavier and heavier, I would sweep it aside.
Obstacles, memories, mm-hmm. and things.
Memories, but also life.
Everyday life. Yeah.
Your thought patterns. Somebody, might approach you in a sexual manner. And brings back stuff like that. And so it's more stuff that falls in on you because you're trying to get out and you don't know how, because you're doing it within your own strength. But it wasn't until that night when I find myself sobbing on the floor after 42 years that I was able to come to myself, just like the prodigal son came to himself. I knew the Lord. It was like 89 when I came to the Lord. 1989. So, I just didn't give it to him because we hide those. We departmentalize things in our heart.
What benefits does that have?
It doesn't. It doesn't, because those things that you don't really want revealed or you don't want to let go of.
Why do you think we have a hard time letting go of them?
Because it's become such a part of you that you're comfortable. Just like I said, in the pit, I became comfortable there. And when more debris would fall in on me, or my life would seem to cave in on me, then I just sweep that aside. I wouldn't handle it. I wouldn't deal with it. We had a daughter that died. Okay? And for 15 years, I thought I had dealt with it. We were living in Asia at the time, actually. We were in Japan. And I was getting ready to go to a retreat. And I went to the retreat, and God began to open my eyes through song, holy, holy, holy. Mm. Oh my gosh, tears, just weeping, okay? I had just seen Steel Magnolia when it came out. I had just seen that. And there's a part in that movie where it says, where Sally Field is saying, she's at the graveside service when her daughter dies. And her friends come to her and they go, I know exactly how you feel. And she says, no, you don't. And I went, bingo. Nobody knows. Nobody knows unless you've been in those shoes how that person feels.
To lose a loved one.
To lose a loved
daughter or
one.
son.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And so that's when God began to really open my eyes. Because as a parent, where she was concerned, she died at 11 weeks old.
Mm.
So there's not a lot of memories there. There's memories. She would have been 46 years old. Okay.
Oh, almost right.
I know. I know. But as a mother, you need to know that your children are okay. And I didn't. I knew there's a heaven. I knew that, but I needed to know. You know, there's a no here, but I needed to know here. And the Lord took me there. The Lord took me to see her during music. The missionary that was speaking at this retreat had been going through this process of her son, almost losing her son. When she finally reached this point where she says, okay, Lord, I totally release him to you. And I'm going, how can you do that? You know, how can you release your child? You know, and I was so broken. It's like, I could never do that. And all of this whole time, this was like her fifth speech. How do you do that? I'm tears. Tears are flowing. The Lord, she goes over, her name was Betty, and she goes over to a piano. She begins to play. Well, it was as if angels were playing. No singing or anything, but it sounded like angelic music. Mm. And it took me to a place what I believe was heaven. Mm. And I saw her in a field of flowers.
Wow.
Yeah, there's a long story I won't go into. Then after this field of flowers, I saw her in another place, and she looked at me. And without saying one word out of her mouth, she looked at me and mentally speaking, she spoke and said, I'm okay, Mommy. Really, I'm okay. Oh. Then I saw a burning cross. Mm. Just like that, she was gone. And I saw a burning cross where God was purifying me. He was burning out all that dross, all that ugliness. And I was free. And I knew that I was free of releasing her. But when it came to me, releasing me, I wasn't free.
So you knew that you released her.
Yeah.
And how do you know when you haven't released self?
I had no peace. I didn't like myself. Mm. I didn't like my appearance. I didn't like the ugliness I had turned into. I'd grown up in a harsh situation. I'm the youngest of 3 daughters, and I saw my oldest sister go through an awful lot. And I promised myself I would never put myself in that position that she had put herself in, had fallen into, and became a victim to. And I even spoke to my husband about it and told him things just like, if you ever do this, it doesn't matter if I love you or not, I'm gone. Looking at other people in their life and choosing for yourself your best avenue, but then when you can only go so far with that, because you don't get down into the nitty-gritty of your heart, mm-hmm. into those doors that you got shut even away from God. You have to open that door and say, where it's so dark and dingy and foul-smelling and just whatever the case is, you have to get down into there and go, okay, Lord, I'm willing for you to do this. And I saw, during the Walking in Freedom class, I saw my friend get up there and say, I have the victory. And I thought to myself, man, if she's got that kind of courage, where's mine? And it's only through the Lord. And it's only through the Lord that he takes that stain away from us, that he takes that ugliness away, that foul smelling, that condemnation that you have for yourself, because I had such shame and such guilt that I couldn't even look at myself in the mirror for years.
What does that look like? Like, what does shame look like?
An embarrassment. Number one, you're embarrassed because of how I kept returning back to this man. I kept doing this. I did this to myself. As an adult looking at that, that's how I viewed myself. And so the embarrassment of it, the shame of not facing yourself, not feeling good about yourself, the guilt that I carried with that, of look what you did to yourself. You're not worthy of God. You're not worthy of anything. You know, how can you say, you know, this man loves you, your husband loves you when you're so dirty? You know, so it's that self-condemnation. It's just
Constantly beating yourself up.
oh, absolutely. Just not being worthy.
Verbally.
Yeah. It's just and it took me to a place. It took me to a place in my marriage where I was ready to walk away from years with my husband and our 2 children that are living today. I was willing to walk away from that.
What kept you?
God. The Lord did. Because, I mean, I had a state picked out that I knew my husband would never find me in. Was going to change my name. Was going to take half of what was, you know, rightfully mine and leave my children, leave my husband behind and just go to hell.
How do you discern what God is saying and what you're trying to do when it all looks so real and so right to you?
With me, there was nothing but chaos within. There was nothing but turbulence. There was nothing peaceful about me. I didn't have peace within me. It was always something. But I found myself in those patterns and I didn't like it. I didn't want that added into my pit where I was. So I had to, again, come to myself. As the prodigal son came back home, okay, because he had chosen to go away. And when he came back home, what happened? The father of the prodigal son held his arms open for him and received him into himself, received him back to the family. He worked on me in such a way where I no longer saw myself through my own eyes, but I saw it through his eyes.
Was it at that moment or did it take a little bit?
It took a little time.
A little time.
Yeah. And the thing is seeing it through his eyes is seeing it through love. Because he is love.
Because imagine if you would have left because you thought that was right. Mm-hmm. What would have happened?
And if he is love, then that love is in you. And that love has to be embraced by you, for you. Because that's how he does. He wants us to crawl up in his lap and let him hold us.
I like that.
It's one of those things that you really have to desire within yourself, that you have to reach out. And only God can do this. Only God can bring the transformation. And has he done it for me? Yes, he has. He's freed me from a lot of bondages, a lot of areas. He still is. For a lot of the people that might see this is the fact that in facilitating the Walking in Freedom class for those years that we did and the teachings that went on and just the baggage that you see women have that are so distraught. It takes a lot of time to build a relationship with the individuals to open up, to share, to trust. You know, who are you going to trust? Can you trust your friend to tell your friend your baggage and they not go and tell their neighbor or their other friend or whoever? And the next thing you know is you get together with these people and everybody knows your business. You don't need that. You don't want that. That just piles in more dirt on you, if you will. The one to go to is Jesus Christ, and he frees you. But those that deal with rape, those that deal with gang rape, even those that deal with abortions, those that deal with homosexuality or prostitution or whatever the case is, you're not hopeless. You're not that hopeless case to the Lord, because He already knows it. And He knows what's deep within you, and He knows that only He can come and take that from you. But you have to be that willing vessel that has to walk that into that and allow Him to take that from you. It's when we close up our heart and say, no, Lord, I can't give you that. It's too dirty. It's not, I don't want you to see that. I'm embarrassed by that. I feel guilty about that. Maybe I was in prostitution and I want to hide that. That's just ugly stuff. I don't want that. They used to pay me for stuff like that. And it's like, I don't want that. That's ugly stuff. And He's like, but just give it to me. Just give it to me. I'll take it. You don't have to carry it anymore. And I'll free you from that. And I'll wash you as white as snow. And you don't have to view yourself like that, because you're a child of God. Amen. You're a child of God, and He loves you so much that He sent His Son to die for you on the cross, to take your sins away. And because of that, we can walk in victory, because greater is He that's in me than he that's in the world. And He is in me. He is in Maggie. And I pray He is in you, in your hearts. And I pray that you'll reach out to Him and let Him free you of whatever bondages it is. The condemnation maybe of multiple divorces. That I'm a failure. I can't even get a man. I'm a failure. Look at this. What's wrong with me? Or it's always somebody else's fault. But it takes two to tango.
That's right.
There's two sides to every story. So you have to own that. You have to take responsibility. I own the fact that I was destroying my family. I owned the fact that I was going to desert them because of my pain was so great. And I was running not from my family, but from me. From me, because I couldn't handle me. But wherever I went, I wasn't going to reach into that future with both hands. I might just be in between. Go, okay, Lord, you can handle this, but I want to stay back here. And He's going, no, let go. Let go of that past. Reach to the future. And eventually I reached to the future to where now I'm free. I'm on the freedom side of things. I no longer have to look at myself as an ugly, filthy rag. But I can see myself through the eyes of Christ, who has washed me, who has cleansed me, who has made me whole, and made me the person I am today. Because of who He is, I can walk in victory today. Do I still get stuff? You betcha. Do we still get attacked? You betcha. Okay? We sure do. And it's okay. Because again, I'll say the verse again in 1 John 4:4. Greater is He that is in me. He that is in me. Than he, the enemy, the devil, that's in this world. And so because of that, I can walk in victory. Okay, girl?
This is Miss Shirley Evans. Miss Shirley, will you give your information for us? You have your email or...
My email address is gingyx4@gmail. It's spelled GINGIEX4@gmail.com. I'll give you a little hint on what gingy is what my grandchildren call me, gingy. And so, and at the time I set it up, I only had 4 grandchildren. Now I have 5.
I want to thank you for tuning in, for listening, and for watching. For those of you that are watching, you can subscribe to my podcast, Overcomer, Walking in Freedom, Maggie Wynn. Or you can go to YouTube channel at maggiewynn.com. We'll leave a link below so that you can see all the information there, where to find us on social media. And please like our podcast and share it. Hopefully it will bless someone else. And thank you for watching. Overcomers, that's you and I. We'll see you again soon.
Thank you, Maggie. I love you.
I love you too.